our Turning Point USA family, but I wanted you guys all to see the Medal of Freedom and be able to look at it in the back of it. All that's the first one. I literally will stand here so all of you guys. Like I'm not, I don't care. Everyone can have their moment and see. Yeah, where's that?
Thank you.
Look at this. This is Erika Kirk. She's smiling, laughing, and holding up a Medal of Freedom, like she just stepped off a stage with a win. People saw this clip and instantly started whispering, "Something's not right." Even body language experts checked out the same footage, and what they pointed out felt seriously unsettling. So now the big question is everywhere. Is this how a widow is supposed to act after losing her husband? Or are people reading way too deep into a moment they don't fully understand? Either way, the reactions online are intense, and folks can't stop talking about it. Now, let's get into the background. Charlie Kirk is a huge name in conservative circles. Young, outspoken, founder of Turning Point USA, always debating on college campuses. People either support him heavy, or they don't rock with him at all. There's really no middle ground. The guy built a reputation off strong opinions and high energy. No doubt about it, but here's where things start to feel confusing. His wife, Erika Kirk, appeared on camera not long after rumors and discussions about his situation started circulating. And listen, nobody can tell someone how to grieve. Everyone handles emotions differently. Still, when people watched those clips, a lot of them felt like something didn't line up. Even Joe Rogan, who's known for speaking his mind, started getting mentioned in these conversations too. Joe Rogan started raising questions on his podcast. He looked at the situation, the reported incident, the suspect, and all the strange details people claim don't line up. And his reaction was basically, none of this makes sense. That's exactly what got people talking even louder. But here's the part making the internet go wild. Several body language commentators have been breaking down Erika Kirk's behavior, frame by frame, move by move, and some viewers think the reactions look unusual. Now, that does not prove anything, and grief can show up in different ways. But online, people are still side-eyeing the footage hard. In this video, we're going to break down the biggest questions being raised. Joe Rogan's concerns about how the case is being discussed, the body language claims about Erika, the comparisons people are making to how widows usually grieve, and why some online users started calling her the Happy Widow. That nickname is harsh, but it shows how messy this conversation has become. But before we get into Erika's behavior, you need to understand what allegedly happened to Charlie Kirk, because the more people dig into this case, the more questions keep popping up. This is where Joe Rogan comes in. He's not just asking easy questions, he's digging into the details and calling out what he thinks sounds off.
I don't necessarily think they know what's going on yet. There's a lot of weird shit going on with this.
I know.
First of all, there was that one guy who was the decoy. All right, so you got this guy who's an older guy who starts yelling out. Didn't he take his pants down? He took his pants down. This guy was at 9/11. He was at the Boston bombings.
All the hits.
He called in a fake bomb at another place. And then he did this at this thing. Right after, so somehow or another, this guy has the state of mind that the moment someone gets shot, he yells out and says, I did it, and takes his pants down or something like that. I don't know.
And a guy wrote, this guy got what he deserved. No, he didn't. He had open debates. That takes courage. So if you didn't agree with him, you could come and speak. What's wrong with that?
Listen to what Joe says about the suspect situation. Then there was this older man who reportedly showed up at the scene and started yelling, I did it. I did it. And according to the story being discussed, he even pulled his pants down right there. Joe Rogan pointed out how strange that was, because once someone acts that out of control, it gets harder to know what is real, what is a distraction, and what is just chaos. Joe basically asked, what are the odds that this guy would be at all those different events? And people online ran with that question fast, because when something already feels messy, one random detail like that can make the whole thing look even more suspicious. But then the story gets even more wild. The official claim being talked about says the real suspect was a 21-year-old man and that he supposedly used his grandfather's old rifle from World War I. People say it had no serial code, and somehow he took it apart, carried it in a backpack, climbed onto a roof, put it back together, and made the shot.
This kid who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check? You don't have a drone? Like, that's insane. So he's on the roof, he shoots, he jumps from the roof, he jumps down 14 feet.
Yeah, we saw didn't they have video of him jump? Somebody had a cell phone video of him jumping.
There's
down,
a video
right?
of him jumping. So this guy, whoever it is, jumps off of the roof and lands, whether or not he's even the guy who shot him. Maybe he thought he was going to shoot him. Maybe he's a patsy. Maybe he did it.
I feel like he's a plant. Did you see the video? Did you see the person doing the investigating on his mom's Facebook?
No.
You haven't seen this? Have you seen that, Jamie? Some dude online.
His mom's got a weird Facebook. I spill coffee.
Very trippy. It doesn't make any sense.
Now, Joe Rogan knows firearms, and he really gets into why that version sounds hard for some people to believe. He says you would need the right tools, like Allen wrenches and firearm smith gear. And even for someone skilled, taking apart and rebuilding a rifle like that would not be quick or simple. Joe keeps pushing on that point, and he is not letting it slide. He explains that even experienced people would struggle to pull something like that off, clean and fast. You are talking about precision, timing, and zero room for mistakes. One small slip, and the whole plan falls apart. He also questions how someone could stay calm enough to do all that under pressure. Think about it, carrying parts, finding the right position, putting everything back together, and then actually making the shot. That is not just skill, that is extreme control in a high-stress moment. And this is where more people start raising eyebrows, because if the timeline feels tight and the process sounds complicated, it makes people wonder if every detail is being explained clearly. That does not mean the story is false, but it does mean people want more answers. Joe's whole angle is simple. He is not saying he has the truth. He is saying the situation deserves better explanations. And when big questions keep stacking up with no clear answers, the conversation only gets louder. Then there's the question that really gets people stuck. How did this 21-year-old even get on the roof in the first place? No tight security, no drones watching, clear line of sight, and nobody stepped in? Joe Rogan's reaction was blunt. He straight up said, "This story sounds like horse shit." He made it clear none of it adds up to him. And when you actually hear him break it all down step by step, it starts hitting different. You begin to see why people feel like something is off with the official version of events. Not proven, not confirmed, but definitely raising eyebrows all over the place. Joe even goes deeper and says if you really wanted people to lose trust in a situation, this is how you would do it. You throw in confusing details, things that feel random, things that don't connect cleanly. You leave behind evidence that people question. You add a moment where someone is yelling, "I did it!" You bring in a young suspect with a background. People start picking apart. And suddenly, everything starts to feel messy and hard to follow. It almost sounds like he's suggesting the situation comes off chaotic on purpose, or at least that's how some listeners are taking it. And while people are busy arguing over theories about the incident itself, another piece of this story starts pulling serious attention. Charlie Kirk's wife, Erika. Now picture this. Your spouse is gone after a shocking public incident, and only days have passed. Emotions are high, the world is watching, and every move gets analyzed. You would expect someone in that situation to be completely shattered, right? Not eating, not sleeping, barely able to think straight. That is what most people imagine when they picture grief hitting that hard. But according to the clips people are sharing, that is not how Erika Kirk appeared just days after everything happened. She showed up on camera at Turning Point USA headquarters, and this is the moment that sparked all the debate. People keep replaying this footage, looking closely at every expression, every movement, trying to figure out what they are seeing.
Our Turning Point USA family, but I want you guys all to see the Medal of Freedom and be able to look at it in the back of it. You guys are all part of the rescue. On the back, it's the first nest.
Look at her face. She's smiling. Not a quick, nervous smile, but what looks like a full, genuine smile. She's holding up Charlie's Medal of Freedom, showing it to the staff, talking about legacy, and keeping the energy high. Some viewers say she comes across confident and composed, while others think the tone feels unexpectedly upbeat. Now, to be fair, grief is not the same for everyone. Some people go into shock, some stay busy, some try to stay strong in front of others. There is no single correct way to react in a moment like that, but when people compared this to how widows are usually expected to act so soon after a passing, it stood out to them. One comment on the video spread everywhere online. It said, "Everyone grieves differently, but no one grieves like her." And that line right there captured exactly what a lot of people were already thinking. And once that clip started spreading, the internet did what it always does. It went into full breakdown mode. People began analyzing every second, every smile, every gesture, trying to read between the lines and figure out what it all meant. And some viewers said her energy felt too upbeat for the situation. Others pushed back hard, saying people were being unfair and expecting grief to look one specific way. The debate got loud fast, and it split people right down the middle. Then came the body language discussions. Clips started popping up with commentators pointing out things like posture, eye contact, and tone of voice. They claimed certain expressions looked more like confidence than sadness. But again, none of that proves anything. It is all interpretation, and interpretations can be wrong. Still, the label "happy widow" kept spreading, and it stuck in a way that made the situation even more intense. That nickname alone added fuel to the conversation, turning a moment into a full-blown online storm. At this point, it was not just about the original incident anymore. It became about perception, expectations, and how quickly people jump to conclusions when something does not match what they think it should look like. Here's the thing, that was not the only clip people were talking about. More footage started surfacing, and once viewers began putting everything side by side, it painted a picture that had a lot of people asking even more questions. Another video made the rounds online. In this one, Erika is arriving at an event in a car. This time she appears emotional, like she is crying and grieving. On the surface, it looks completely different from the earlier footage. But the internet reacted instantly. People started slowing the video down, watching her face, her movements, her posture.
Love you, Erika. Charlie, 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 Charlie. Love you, Erika. Charlie, Charlie, Charlie.
And the big question popped up again, does this look like real grief? Or does it look like someone trying to show grief? The comments went wild. Some people said things like bad acting and fake crying, while others compared it to scenes where actors have to force emotions on camera. The reactions were intense and the criticism came fast. Now, to be clear, none of those reactions prove anything. People online can jump to conclusions quickly, and short clips do not always tell the full story. But at the same time, a lot of viewers said they felt something was off, even if they could not fully explain why. And maybe that feeling is wrong. Maybe people are misreading everything. Maybe this is just how Erika expresses emotion under pressure. But instead of guessing, let's take a closer look at what experts and others are actually saying. Now, people started bringing up comparisons, saying if we are going to question Erika's behavior, we should at least look at how grief has appeared in other public moments. That is where Vanessa Bryant's name came into the conversation. After the heartbreaking passing of her husband, Kobe Bryant, and a close family member in that helicopter incident, it was a tragedy that shook people everywhere. Vanessa stayed mostly out of the spotlight at first, but when she did appear, many people felt her pain was visible. The emotion, the heaviness, the kind of grief that hits deep and does not hide easily. That moment stuck with a lot of people.
We have so many amazing things down the pipeline.
Fail in due time.
I am so excited.
I miss you, all of you, every day. I love you.
So online, viewers began placing these situations side by side. On one side, Vanessa appearing overwhelmed and heartbroken in the moments she shared publicly. On the other, Erika appearing more upbeat in certain clips, talking about future plans and keeping energy high. For many people watching, that contrast felt strong and hard to ignore. That is when the internet came up with a label that spread fast, the happy widow. It is a harsh phrase, no doubt about it, and not everyone agrees with using it. But it shows just how intense the reactions became once people started making these comparisons. At the same time, it is important to remember something. Grief does not follow a fixed pattern. People respond in ways that can look completely different from one another. Some break down publicly. Others hold it together, especially in front of a crowd. Still, for many viewers, the debate comes down to this. There is a difference between grieving in a unique way and appearing unaffected, at least from the outside looking in. And that is the line people keep arguing about. And this is where the situation really turns complicated. Because now it is not just about one clip or one moment. It is about how people interpret behavior under pressure, in public, with cameras everywhere. Some people argue that what they are seeing does not match what they expect grief to look like. They point to the smiles, the energy, the way Erika speaks in those clips, and say it feels disconnected from the situation. To them, it raises questions they cannot ignore. But others are pushing back just as strongly. They're saying this kind of judgment is unfair, that nobody truly knows what is happening behind the scenes. Just because someone is not breaking down in public does not mean they are not hurting in private. And that divide keeps getting bigger. One side is convinced something is off, the other side thinks the internet is reaching way too far based on limited footage. Both sides feel sure they are right, and that is what keeps the debate alive. At the center of it all is Erika, being watched, analyzed, and judged from every angle. Every expression gets replayed, every word gets picked apart, and every appearance adds more fuel to an already intense conversation. And that is the part that really sticks with people. It is not just that Erika is handling things differently, it is that she comes across as happy, energized, and ready to move forward. That shift in tone is what keeps raising eyebrows. Then comes the next moment that had people talking even more. After Charlie's passing, leadership of Turning Point USA needed to continue, and Erika stepped into that role. That is a huge responsibility, emotional, heavy, and not something most people would take on lightly. Usually people expect a tone of hesitation in a moment like that. Maybe a sense of pressure, maybe even reluctance. But in the clips being shared, that is not the vibe some viewers are picking up.
She seems really upbeat, really happy, only days after her husband was assassinated. That looks like smiles. That looks like laughing and happiness and joy. So many people noticed this. Erika was laughing right after her husband was assassinated. Now, I'm not saying she's celebrating. I'm saying it's weird.
Listen to how she speaks. She talks about hosting the show, continuing the work, and keeping things moving forward. And instead of sounding weighed down, she sounds energized. She even says, "I'm excited." It's weird to say excited. That line right there caught a lot of attention instantly. And it did not stop there. She goes on to talk about how blessed they are, about having more work than they could imagine, and about amazing things down the pipeline. For some viewers, that level of optimism felt surprising, given the situation. Of course, others see it differently. They argue that stepping up and focusing on the future could be her way of coping, staying strong and keeping things from falling apart. But no matter how you look at it, this moment added even more intensity to an already heated conversation. And once that clip hit the internet, the reaction was instant. People replayed that "I'm excited" line over and over, trying to make sense of it. For some, it felt completely out of place given the situation, and they could not get past it. Others tried to look at it from a different angle. They said maybe she is focusing on purpose, on responsibility, on keeping something important alive during a chaotic time. In that view, excitement is not about the passing. It is about stepping up when everything feels like it is falling apart. But the internet is not exactly known for patience. The louder voices kept pushing the idea that her tone did not match the moment. It pointed at the energy, the optimism, the forward-looking mindset, and said it felt disconnected from what they expected to see. And that is how this situation kept growing. One clip turned into multiple clips. One opinion turned into thousands. And suddenly, it was not just about what happened. It was about how people think someone should act after something extremely difficult. At this point, the story is being shaped as much by public reaction as by the events themselves. Every new video, every new comment adds another layer to a situation that already has people questioning everything. And the whole time she is saying all this, her energy stays upbeat. She sounds enthusiastic, almost like she is talking about a new business move, not the fallout from losing her husband. That is what made people stop and stare. TikTok users started breaking it down fast. They clipped her tone, her word choices, her facial expressions, and her body language. And the reaction from a lot of viewers was clear. This does not look like grief to them. It looks like someone stepping into a bigger role and feeling ready for it. But then things got even stranger.
I'm excited. It's weird to say excited, but it's also very surreal to say it because I know that God will use all of this in a way that will glorify him, further Charlie's legacy, and Charlie's up in heaven just having...
He's rooting us on. I know that.
He's so rooting us on.
Yeah.
I know.
In another clip, Erika talks about continuing to use Charlie's social media accounts. She says she wants to keep his voice alive and keep posting on his behalf. At first, that might sound touching, like a wife trying to honor her husband's memory. But not everyone saw it that way. Some people started asking, is posting as someone after they are gone really honoring them? Or does it feel uncomfortable and out of touch? That question hit hard online. And this is where the debate moves from random comments to expert opinions. Because at this point, people were suspicious, but suspicion is not proof. So now the focus shifts to people who study behavior and communication to see what they think Erika's actions really show. Now enter Dr. G, a professional body language analyst. She reportedly reviewed hours of Erika's footage, going frame by frame, breaking down every small detail. And what she pointed out got a lot of attention.
This is very much a real smile. The way that the eyes wrinkle, the way that the corners of the mouth go up, that all matches what would be a legitimate smile. So when people are saying, is she acting? Not right here, she isn't. That seems to be actual. She actually feels good right there.
A way that always keeps Charlie first and his dreams alive and his legacy.
And then afterwards, she says, keeps his dreams alive. When she raised her eyebrows, she wants you to understand she is planning on keeping his dreams alive. That's something she's actually feeling as she's talking about it. Because when we raise our eyebrows, it brings attention to our face, and that's what she's focused on. You have to think so much of this is unconscious. So it's not like she's trying to perform in some way that she could fake all of these things. What she's saying right now really does seem to be tied into how she's feeling.
First, and his dreams.
First, Dr. G talked about something called a Duchenne smile. That is the kind of smile people associate with real emotion, where not just the mouth moves, but the eyes too. The corners crinkle, and it gives off that look of genuine happiness. According to her analysis, she noticed that exact type of smile on Erika's face while she was talking about Charlie's vision and continuing his work. And that detail made people pause. Because if that reading is correct, it suggests that in that moment, Erika's positive emotion was real, not forced. Now think about why that stood out to viewers. You have someone speaking about stepping into a major role right after a difficult situation and showing what appears to be a genuine smile while doing it. For some people watching, that felt unexpected, but Dr. G did not stop there.
We will have consistency. The members...
So we will have consistency. She really wants people to understand this. And that's what's interesting and what's different about when she's talking about this relative to some of what she's talked about before. So we're seeing a difference in body language here and what we saw at the beginning. At the beginning, she was connecting with the other people in the room, sharing stories, talking about Charlie, feeling good. Now she's talking about continuing the legacy of Turning Point USA and the Charlie Kirk Show. There is an intensity here. I think this is something she feels very strongly about. And so you're not seeing the smiles and the warmth in the same way at this point. And that's not being critical. I think that's just a difference in how intense she is and how serious she is about what it is that she's doing.
She also pointed out a shift. When Erika moved on to talking about the future of the show and making promises about consistency, her body language seemed to change. The tone, the posture, the overall energy, it all looked different compared to those earlier moments. And that contrast is what added another layer to the conversation. Because now people were not just looking at one expression, they were comparing how her behavior shifted depending on what she was talking about. And that shift is what really grabbed attention. According to the analysis being discussed, when Erika moved into more structured talk about the show and future plans, her delivery started to look more controlled. The gestures tightened up, the rhythm of her speech changed, and some viewers felt like the energy became more measured. Now, some people took that as a sign that certain moments were more rehearsed or carefully presented. They argued that the contrast between the relaxed, smiling moments and the more structured delivery raised questions for them. But again, that is one interpretation. Others pushed back and said this kind of shift is completely normal. When someone talks about emotional memories, they might loosen up, And when they switch to business or responsibilities, they naturally become more focused and composed. Still, the back and forth did not slow down at all. People kept replaying those clips, pointing out every transition, every pause, every expression. One side saw inconsistency, the other saw a person navigating a high-pressure situation in real time. And that is what keeps this whole situation alive online. It is not just one moment people are reacting to. It is the differences between moments, the changes in tone, and the way those shifts get interpreted in completely different ways depending on who is watching. She squints, looks straight into the camera, and her whole tone shifts. What started off warm suddenly feels more intense and focused. According to Dr. G's take, that moment shows Erika is serious about continuing the legacy. Not just saying the words, but actually locked in, determined, and ready to follow through. And yeah, that is where people pause again. Because for many viewers, that kind of focus so soon after a major passing feels unexpected. Most people imagine someone in that position, just trying to get through each moment, not thinking about structure, planning, or long-term moves. But in these clips, Erika is talking strategy. She is thinking about consistency, about keeping things running, about what comes next. And depending on who is watching, that either looks like strength under pressure or something that feels out of place. So in a way, Dr. G's breakdown matched what a lot of people online were already saying. They feel like her behavior does not line up with what they expect grief to look like. But even that is still interpretation, not proof of anything. And just when it seemed like the analysis could not get more intense, another body language commentator stepped in. This second expert focused on a specific moment that they described as tone-deaf and unsettling.
I want to preface, we're not awkward. We're not like weird. Cringy. We're not cringe. We're not going to be tweeting as if it's him. That's tone deaf and really disturbing. And anyone who does that's like morbidly off. Yeah. That's not what's happening. What's happening is the team is keeping this alive because we have Charlie in each and every one of us. Yes. And it is going to be continually the North Star of the conservative movement, of the voice of the youth, of the voice of the base, and that will not end.
All right, so earlier we talked about incongruity, and sometimes that means when something is incongruent with the environment, but other times it's an incongruity between someone's words and behaviors. And people who are very empathetic are extremely sensitive to that type of mismatch. They notice it pretty much immediately. This is why I believe this moment that we just looked at, and a few more like it, didn't sit well with some people.
It goes back to Erika talking about using Charlie's social media accounts, posting messages as if his voice is still active. That detail hit hard for some viewers. The expert argued that this kind of action could suggest a disconnect from what people usually see as typical grieving behavior, especially in a situation involving a violent passing. But once again, not everyone agrees with that take. Some people see it as a way of preserving a legacy, while others feel uncomfortable with it. And that split reaction is exactly why this conversation keeps getting bigger and more intense. And at this point, the conversation is completely split. On one side, you have people saying this behavior crosses a line. They argue that posting as someone who has passed, especially in a situation like this, feels unsettling and hard to accept. On the other side, people are defending it just as strongly. They say continuing someone's voice online could be a tribute, a way to keep their message alive and not let everything they built disappear overnight. In that view, it is not strange, it is meaningful. But the criticism did not slow down. Some viewers said the tone of those messages matters just as much as the act itself. They questioned whether it felt authentic, or if it came across disconnected from the reality of what happened. And this is where things get even more intense, because now it is not just about body language anymore. It is about decisions, public image, and how actions are interpreted in a highly emotional situation. Every move Erika makes is being watched, analyzed, and debated in real time. Supporters see strength and resilience. Critics see something that does not sit right with them. And the truth is, both sides are pulling from the same clips, just seeing them in completely different ways. Most people think of preserving someone's memory as leaving things exactly how they were, not adding new posts, not speaking in their voice, just letting their words stand on their own. But Erika seems to see it differently. She talks about continuing his voice, keeping his presence active through social media, almost like he is still part of the conversation. One expert took issue with that and said it could come across as unsettling. Their view was that it might suggest more focus on maintaining the platform and brand, rather than stepping back to process the passing. That perspective hit hard for some people watching, and when you hear it framed like that, you can see why it made certain viewers uncomfortable. It raises a tough question about where the line is between honoring someone and potentially going too far. But even then, it is still just analysis, still opinions, not proof of intent. So people wanted more than just commentary. They wanted someone to break down the actual footage, piece by piece, to point out exactly what felt off and why. That is when another breakdown started gaining attention online. A TikTok user, known for catching small details, put together a video explaining why they found Erika's behavior unsettling. And according to viewers, once you notice the details they highlight, it's hard to ignore them.
I'm gonna say it, Erika Kirk's behavior is unsettling as fuck. It's not conveying real grief, it's conveying performance. It's giving uncanny valley. Like, this woman came out on stage to pyrotechnics, timing her body language and her crying to the music. Then she gives a speech that comes off as more of a piece of performance art than it does as an expression of real grief. And when you look at that woman's face, there is not a single tear streaming down that woman's face. There is not a single smudge of makeup out of place. She's making it look like she's crying, but she's not really crying. So yeah, the whole thing is unsettling as fuck.
One moment they focused on stood out immediately. Erika walks out on stage at an event, and there are pyrotechnics going off, fireworks, dramatic music, the whole setup for what is supposed to be a remembrance-type appearance. That level of production surprised a lot of people. And just like everything else in this situation, that moment split opinions again. Some saw it as honoring a legacy in a big way, while others felt the tone did not match the weight of the moment at all. And that entrance is what really set people off. Fireworks, loud music, a full dramatic setup. It looked more like a major event launch than a quiet moment of reflection. For some viewers, that contrast felt impossible to ignore. The TikTok breakdown zoomed in on that exact point. They argued that the atmosphere did not match what people expect from a remembrance setting. Instead of quiet reflection, it came across as high energy and almost celebratory, and that made a lot of people uncomfortable. Then they pointed out Erika's reaction during that moment. The way she walked out, the way she carried herself, the expressions on her face. According to the video, it gave off confidence and stage presence, not visible grief. And that difference is what they kept emphasizing. But again, not everyone agreed with that take. Some people said events like that are planned in advance, and the production is not always a reflection of one person's emotional state. Others argued that stepping into a public role sometimes requires putting on a composed front, even when things are difficult behind the scenes. Still, the visuals were powerful enough to keep the conversation going, because when people see something that clashes with their expectations, it sticks with them. And this moment became one of the biggest examples used by those questioning the overall situation. Now here is where things really start getting picked apart. Some people said, okay, maybe the event setup was not her decision. Maybe that was all handled by organizers. Fair point. But then attention shifted to something else, her emotional moments on camera. And this is where viewers started zooming in hard. They slowed clips down and claimed that during the parts where she appears to be showing emotion, they could not see visible tears falling. People pointed out her makeup looked untouched, no smudging, no streaks. To them, it looked like she was making the expressions, the sounds, the gestures of showing emotion, but without clear physical signs like tears. And that observation spread fast online. Some even compared it to a performance, saying it felt like someone trying to show what grief looks like rather than naturally expressing it. That is a strong claim, and not everyone agrees with it, but it definitely fueled the conversation. Then another detail got added. Viewers claimed her movements seemed to line up with the music in the background. When the music got louder, she covered her face. When it softened, she looked up again. To some, that felt almost timed, and that made them question it even more. Now, to be fair, there are other explanations. People can cry without visible tears, especially after long periods of stress or emotional exhaustion. and public settings can change how emotions show up. But when you combine all these moments, the smiling clips, the upbeat tone, the focus on work, and then these emotional scenes, it created a pattern that a lot of people online started paying very close attention to. And once people started connecting all those moments together, the conversation hit another level. It was no longer about one clip or one reaction. It became about a pattern that viewers believed they were seeing across multiple appearances. Supporters of that view began saying everything felt too inconsistent. One moment upbeat and energized, another moment emotional but questioned, then back too confident and forward-focused again. To them, it did not flow in a way they expected from someone dealing with a situation like this. But others stepped in and pushed back hard. They argued that real life does not play out in a straight emotional line. People can shift from strong to vulnerable and back again, especially when they are in public, under pressure, and dealing with something overwhelming. That back and forth kept getting louder. Because now it is not just about Erika's actions. It is about how people think grief should look in general. And that is a topic where opinions can get very personal very fast. At this stage, the situation is bigger than the original clips. It is about interpretation, expectations, and how quickly a narrative can build when millions of people are watching the same moments and coming to completely different conclusions. Thousands of comments started piling up, all saying a similar thing. This doesn't feel real. This feels like a performance. That sentiment spread fast, and it became one of the main narratives driving the conversation. At this point, people feel like they have multiple angles to look at. You have expert opinions, side-by-side comparisons, breakdowns of body language, and detailed clip analysis. All of it stacked together has made the situation feel bigger and more complicated than it first appeared. But now, it circles back to Joe Rogan. While a lot of people are locked in on Erika's behavior, Joe is zooming out and looking at the bigger picture. He is not just saying someone is acting unusual. He is questioning the entire situation surrounding Charlie's case. According to Joe's perspective, the confusion, the strange details, and the unanswered questions could be part of something larger. He talks about how, in certain situations, when people lose trust in getting clear answers, it can create even more chaos, and that is the angle he keeps pushing. Not just focusing on one person's actions, but looking at how everything connects, and why so many pieces of this story have people questioning what is really going on. He says you flood the situation with confusion. You stack it with details that feel random, hard to verify, and difficult to piece together. And when people try to make sense of it, they end up arguing with each other instead of getting clear answers. According to that line of thinking, it is not about one strange moment or one person's behavior. It is about the overall picture feeling messy enough that nobody knows what to believe anymore. And that is where some people start connecting Erika's behavior into that bigger narrative. They are not just looking at her clips in isolation. They're asking if everything, the reactions, the tone, the timing, all of it, somehow fits into a situation that already feels confusing. Now, to be clear, that is a perspective, not a confirmed explanation. There is a big difference between raising questions and proving something actually happened a certain way. But once that idea gets introduced, it spreads fast, because people do not like feeling uncertain. When things do not add up cleanly, they start searching for patterns, for meaning, for something that explains why it all feels off. And that is exactly why this story keeps growing. It is not just about answers anymore, it is about the feeling that there might be more going on beneath the surface. The idea being pushed is that you overload the situation with confusion, contradictory details, strange moments, things that do not line up cleanly. And when everything feels messy enough, people stop trying to figure out what is actually true. You hear examples being thrown around, like a weapon that may not match the story, a random person yelling, "I did it," or a suspect with a background that raises questions. Then you add conflicting claims about what was used and how it all happened, and suddenly the entire situation feels chaotic. And in the middle of all that chaos, people start asking where Erika fits into all of this. Is her behavior part of something bigger? Or is she simply stepping into a role and handling it in a way that comes across differently than expected? That is the part Joe Rogan does not answer directly. He lays out the points, highlights what feels off to him, and leaves it open for interpretation. No clear conclusion, just a lot of pieces on the table. So now it comes down to the viewer. What do you think is actually going on here? Is this a case of people reading too much into clips and reactions, or is there something deeper that has not been fully explained yet? Because at the end of all this, there are really only a few ways people are looking at it. One side thinks this is all being overanalyzed, that clips are being taken out of context, slowed down, and turned into something bigger than they actually are. The other side is not convinced at all. They believe the reactions, the timing, the tone, and the overall situation just do not sit right. To them, there are too many moments that feel off to ignore. And then there is the middle ground, people who are not jumping to conclusions, but still feel like there are unanswered questions. They're not saying anything is proven, but they are also not fully buying the explanations they have seen so far. That is what makes this whole story stick. It is not clear-cut, it is not simple, and it leaves room for interpretation at every turn. And when that happens, the internet does what it always does. It keeps digging, replaying, and debating non-stop. So now everything is out there, the clips, the reactions, the expert takes, and the bigger questions being raised. All of it is on the table, and people are still trying to figure out what they believe after seeing it all. So what is really going on here? Is Erika just processing grief in a way people are not used to seeing? Is she in shock, not fully feeling everything yet? Or maybe she is putting on a strong face in public while dealing with it privately. Could it be that she is genuinely focused on stepping into her new role and keeping things moving forward? Or are people reading too much into moments that do not tell the full story? Some even go further and ask if there is something bigger behind all of this, like the questions Joe Rogan has been raising. The truth is, there is no clear answer right now, and that is what makes this situation feel so unsettling. Usually, when someone loses a spouse, the emotion is easy to recognize. But here, people are left questioning what they are actually seeing, and that uncertainty keeps the conversation going. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think is really happening here? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you found this breakdown interesting, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs to see it. And stay tuned, because there is always more to uncover. See you on the next one.